Hi everyone, we're back for round two of Saturday the 24th of July. We just had a chat with Tony Cohen from the Illustrated Man, a little half-hour break, so I hope everyone went to the toilet, had a beer, whatever, maybe had a bite to eat, and we're back for round two, and we've got Melanie Milne, who has... Here we go. Hi everyone coming in. So I'm going to invite Melanie into tonight. We're going to find out about one of the powerhouses of female tattooing these days in Australia and get some really cool stories of where it all began and all the rest of it and where she is now. We're going to talk about lockdowns. We're going to talk about choppers, tattoos, you name it. It's going to come up tonight. So I'm going to Mel into the room and see what's going on in Melbourne. Mel,
hello.
how you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
Good. Just kicking back. Thanks for joining us for round two of Saturday Night Live.
Oh, you're welcome. It's a pleasure. Very exciting. Yeah. I just watched Tony and very disappointed that he stole my look. So I was almost this close to wearing my top hat.
Hey, it's not too late. You can still do it. You know, we can battle it out. Like I had a bit of a meltdown in the break. I was like, man, Tony, he's always been a stylish dresser, and then I knew you were going to come through with the goods as well. So I was like, do I have time to change this shirt? But yeah, I couldn't warm the iron up. So,
there's no point even trying to compete with Tony.
Oh, you can't.
No, you can't.
But yeah, so you're in Melbourne.
I'm in Melbourne. It's raining. It's freezing.
Yep.
And lockdown again. So.
Yep. Yeah, what's the temperature there today? Maybe a chilly 12, 13, something like that?
They keep saying things like it's 12, but feels like 2. So,
yeah.
Yeah,
I grew up in Melbourne, and it's, winters are always like a consistent grey, and it's got a lovely wind chill factor.
Yeah, this is my coming into my third winter. Well, we're in the middle of my third winter here. And the last one wasn't too bad, but it's because we were in lockdown for pretty much the whole thing. So I was just inside, and now I'm just fully accustomed to it.
Yeah. You acclimatise, I think, after a while to wherever you are.
Yeah, I miss the beach though. That's for sure.
Yeah. So you're a Sydney girl, I imagine.
No, so I grew up near Port Macquarie in a little town called Bonny Hills. It's really tiny, and went to school there. My dad grew up there. My mum's from Sydney, but after school I was always drawing and that kind of thing in school, but I wanted to go to art school. They didn't offer that in Port. We didn't have a university until the year I finished school. We had
that's quite shocking to hear that.
They had a University of Newcastle campus. So I did, my mum and sister are both teachers. So I did 6 months of a teaching degree just out of school thinking, that's maybe the road I'll go down. I could be an art teacher. And I fucking hated it. I did my first prac and I realized I don't like kids that much. So not for me. And then I moved to the Gold Coast in 2007. And I just started getting tattooed a lot while I was there. It was something all my friends that I'd met there, knew a bunch of friends who were into punk music and tattoos and cars and things like that. And I just was well, this is a much more interesting scene than whatever was happening in Port Macquarie in the early 2000s. And so that's kind of how I got into tattoos. I just was around people who had them and just thought they were amazing and fascinating. And so I got my very first tattoo at Aces Wild.
Nice. On the corner near Pack Fair.
Yeah, across from Pack Fair. I walked in and I wanted it was the 2000s, so I wanted some stars, obviously. And
solid colour or negative?
The outline, just the outline. They were tiny and they're on my foot. And they were 7 in a line, just down the top of my foot.
Lucky
really
7.
Lucky 7. And I just picked it out of a book they had of stars and got that. And I swiftly got it covered up by my second tattoo, which I started then going to get tattooed at Borderline.
Oh, nice. Timmy Ebbles.
Tim Ebbles. So I got pretty much all my first tattoos done at Borderline by Layla Knight, who was an apprentice at the time.
Oh, yeah. Layla's lovely.
Yeah, she's the best. She's super sweet. And she was probably one of the first like people I met in tattooing who was really open about it. Didn't have any like, it wasn't a secret. She was like, oh, because I was talking to her about wanting to tattoo and how I just thought it was, you know, just the dream job. And she was like, oh yeah, you can do it for sure. And I was just like, oh, okay. Well, if she thinks that I can do it, then like, I'll give it a go. So I started looking for apprenticeships up there. But at the time in the Gold Coast, there wasn't that many shops. There were the kind of the 4 owned by the Branners.
Yep.
Bob, there was one guy called
Pleasure
Bob.
and Pain. I think Jeff down at Palm Beach. Yeah.
And then there was Borderline. There wasn't really that much in the way of tat shops, and no one was looking for an apprentice. So I actually had a friend of mine who I went to primary school with had reached out and told me that she was working the counter at a shop in Sydney.
Yep.
And so I was like, all right, cool. Well, I'll pack my shit up and move to Sydney.
Yeah, wow.
So I did, and she was working at Tattoo Nation in Wentworthville.
Yep.
And so I went in there. She arranged for me to meet with the boss. Adam O'Brien is his name.
Yep.
It was like I think he was kicked out of the Banditos at the time, but he was still very, very Bandito proud, and lots of biker stuff in the shop. And it was your classic like biker tat shop.
I think like Tattoo Nation, they were kind of like one of the first sort of franchise style tattoo shops as well.
Yeah, so they started in Parramatta, and then they opened up a bigger premises in Wenny, and then they had one in Castle Hill as well. So when I got my apprenticeship there, Sanchez was apprenticing there as well. So I met Sanchez there. Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, crazy.
Yeah. So it was like classic biker shop, rough start apprenticeship where they don't actually want to teach you anything. They just want you to start making money as soon as you can. So I'm pretty sure I did my first tattoo the very first time I held a running tattoo machine about a month after I started there.
Well, you know, obviously you come from an art background, so why not?
Oh, it was fucking terrible. Actually, the guy who I did it on, Chris Faulkner was his name. He was working there, and he was like, do you want to do a tattoo today? And I was like, all right, let's do it. And he actually sent me a photo of it a couple weeks back.
Yeah.
And it was like a little Frankenstein head from like an Ed Roth like Rat Fink book.
Yeah, crazy.
Yeah.
Let's just go back a bit. So people that aren't from like the major cities, I think a lot of people that are from smaller towns or whatever, where there's maybe not the opportunity, like where you were, they'd either go either way, like Sydney or the Gold Coast, to try, to the bigger lights to see what's there. But like
even Newcastle, like kind of between Port Macquarie, like you go, a lot of my high school friends went to Newcastle because it was only 2 hours from Port, but a big enough like adjustment. I think going from somewhere, especially we weren't even in Port, we were half an hour south, and it's you know, a tiny little town. So moving straight to Sydney, I think would have been quite overwhelming. But I went to schoolies in the Gold Coast, and I was like, this is pretty good here. I could live here.
Yeah. I worked at Skin Effects on the Gold Coast. Yeah, I worked at Skin Effect. I worked at Skin Effects on the Gold Coast for years. So yeah, I've done many a schoolies. Yeah, it was a crazy time. But just back to that as well, like back to Layla, back to that era, like the Gold Coast scene, you say there weren't that many tattoo shops. I think, you know, I think I was leaving as you were coming there, and there were maybe 6 to 8 shops maximum. Now there's 30, 40, 50 or whatever. Just shows the explosion of tattooing. But I think just touching back on Layla, I think on the Gold Coast then, she would have probably been maybe one of the only female tattooers. I think, who else was there at Borderline at that time? I can't remember, but yeah.
That time, when I was getting tattooed, Pommy Paul and Nix were both there.
Yep.
But yeah, Layla was the only girl, and that's kind of what drew me to her. Like I had a friend get tattooed by her, which is kind of how everyone got tattooed before, you know, Instagram and stuff. Is usually
like the MySpace era.
Someone. Yeah. So, but what drew me to her was that she was a girl, you know, and I just kind of thought like it's this incredibly masculine dominated industry, and I want to be part of it. And there's this girl who I can go and talk to. So, and she was doing amazing stuff. Like she was doing, you know, she was tattooing like all the kind of hardcore kids at the time.
Yep. Yeah, the hardcore was massive on the Gold Coast. Like when I was at Skin Effects, Mitch Love, who's now an amazing tattoo artist, he was working the counter there. And it was like, and you know, at that time I was in my late 20s or early 30s or something. I'm like a bogan, like what is this hardcore stuff? Like, you know, it's a bit of an eye opener. So, but you know, the hardcore scene just took to tattooing, and
for sure,
people got covered.
They got covered. It was like, and that was the kind of first time I really saw people who were getting tattooed, who didn't kind of care too much about the imagery. You know, it was like they were going to certain people and getting tattooed, and they just wanted this look of being heavily tattooed, and like just to be kind of part of their like little niche scene. Obviously, it's not a little niche thing anymore. Fucking everyone's got tattoos, but it was those are the people that I would see, and I was just really drawn to that.
Yeah. Hey, I'm just going to acknowledge some questions here, some comments. Like, a really important questions come up. Like a really good mutual friend of ours, Lucia, she's asked, is that cast wine, and what year?
She'll be happy to know that I found this bottle already open in our pantry from a house party we had pre-lockdown. So who knows how long it's been sitting there with the cork out. Well,
you know, waste not, want not. You know, we're in tough times.
It's tough times.
So yeah. So okay, so from the Goldie, you moved to Sydney. Okay, so what were some of the first tattoos you got? You got those stars, then where were you getting tattooed on your body then? Like your arms, your legs, your back?
So I got the stars on my feet, and then I got them covered up with my second tattoos, which was a rose and a heart that Layla did. And then I got a bunch of stuff on my arm. I just went straight into tattooing my arm. But being so my mum obviously hated that. But being the 2000s, it was all real emo. So heaps of like zombie stuff and things that were really of the time.
And you're still obviously living true to those thoughts now.
Yes, hardcore emo. But I actually had my arm lasered and covered, so I've got a sleeve from Rusty now. It's very, you can't
amazing.
See it. It's very dark.
Amazing.
Because they were all the tattoos that I like. The ones that I had from Layla were great. The ideas that I had, not so great. But yeah. So some painful laser to get rid of those.
Yeah. So with that as well, like your mum and your sister, were they both art teachers?
No, so my mum's a PE teacher and my sister's a science teacher.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, so they're not, no one else in the family was kind of artistic at all, and it definitely took them a long time to come around to, my dad not so much, but my mum to kind of come around to the idea that this was an actual career path for me. And it was
a real job.
A real job, a real job. They were always really supportive, like, you know, always really supportive, but I think hesitant. You know, is Melanie ever going to be able to support herself?
Yeah, and I guess also as well, like, you know, our parents' thoughts of, she's entering this mad biker world, or, you know, there's a criminal element, all that sort of stuff. So just correct me on this. So when you were there, you were drawing a lot of stuff and probably showing it to Layla, maybe some other people.
I never really showed anyone anything. I think I was probably way too self-conscious for that. It was more just kind of talking about what to do and how to go about it, and everyone's advice was just go and get tattooed. So that's kind of what I did. And then, like, I would talk about it a lot to my friends. And like I said, I had a friend from school who said that she was working the counter at this shop in Sydney, and she could get me she was like, I can't guarantee you could get a job, but I can definitely get you a chat with the boss. And I think it's one of those times that kind of the sexism in tattooing really worked to my favor, because I think he wanted to hire me because I was a woman, not because of any talent I had, because I certainly was showing off a book full of complete garbage. But I think he was just like, young little blonde chick wants a job in a tat shop, sure, you know, and like I wasn't getting paid or anything like that, so really it was easy for him to just kind of have a bunch of apprentices churning away.
For sure. I think that was around the time when obviously, you know, tattooing is growing bigger, you know, getting more out in the suburbs, but also as well, it was, you know, the era where every shop had like a manager, and a lot of the times they were a female, which sort of broke the ice because we've got new clientele coming in, that sort of thing. You know, so but what I'm that's amazed me is like, you know, you had the, you know, the willpower to just get up and move from, you know, Port Macquarie to the Gold Coast, and then on a whim, so to speak, for an opportunity to tattoo, you moved down to Sydney. So it shows like huge, like, yeah, dedication and drive.
Yeah, I like, you know, probably wasn't the smartest financial move. I did have my car repossessed.
Yep. That's commitment.
Couldn't pay my bills anymore, and I just thought, well, fuck it, this is too important. Yep. So I'm just going to carry on having no job, having no money. And luckily I had my best mate who I lived with, who I met when I moved to Sydney. She pretty much supported me for the first few years. So that was great. You know, we had our box of wine, still managed to go out and party on the weekends.
Yep.
We made it happen.
Are you laughing at the comments?
I'm not even looking. Let me have a look.
There's some good ones.
Is it just Lucia talking smack?
Yep. So with that as well, so what was your progression there from Tattoo Nation? Like just getting cut loose on customers and going from there, like just, you know, thrown in the deep end and learning on the fly?
Yeah, pretty much. So they were just basically like, go for it, tattoo your friends. And because I'd moved down there with not really knowing anyone, I didn't have any friends. So I just tattooed customers. I just was like, whatever, I'll never see these people again. I'm just going for it. And I did that for a couple of months. And then one of the guys who was working there, Scott Eastlake, he works at Rising Tide now. He was offered to leave. One of his customers wanted to fund a tattoo shop for him to open his own shop. So I actually went with Scott.
Was that Battle Royal?
Yeah. So before that, there was a brief stint where this other guy who was funding it had a shop. It was in Hornsby, just North Shore Inc.
Yeah.
It was pretty. I'm like not ashamed to say it was pretty fucking terrible. And then we kind of wised up on his bullshit. Left. Scott opened Battle Royale. And then I was there for a couple of years, and then just kind of felt like I needed to grow a bit more, and I hit up Les at LDF in Sydney, and that was my next move. Yeah,
cool. So with Scott, like, were you starting to develop a style? Because, you know, Scott was doing a lot of traditional stuff back then, and, you know, so were you, you know, obviously coming from, you know, Tattoo Nation to doing stuff with Scott, it was and, you know, the North Shore, a bit of a different clientele.
Yeah, definitely. I definitely started to kind of develop my own style. I'd always been really drawn to other female tattooers. So when I first was getting into tattooing, things like the very first kind of run of tattoo candies that they were doing in the mid-2000s, I flipped through them, and the people whose stuff I really loved were like Mimsy and Claire Clarity and Ali Manners, and just all these women who were doing, that exact one. All these women who are doing these really bright, bold, like traditional, but aimed at women tattoos. And like, I think I've kind of steered away from the real cutesy stuff now, but that's definitely what started me off, is just thinking like, well, I want to design tattoos for women. I want to tattoo women. That's pretty much my direction that I was aiming myself at back then. Now I want to tattoo everyone, but...
Yeah. But no, that's the thing. That's where you find you start to find your way and all that sort of thing. And so then you approach Les, and which, because he had the two studios, were you working in King Street or in Marrickville?
King Street. So he put up a thing saying they were looking for artists, and I'd been with Scott for a couple of years. And I was like, okay, well, I think now's my time. And Scott was always like super supportive. Like, he was super proud. He knew what was going on from day one. Like, he did so much for me. He's an absolutely lovely guy. And he was just like, I'm just so proud of you. This is great. And I went had a chat with Les, and he was like, cool, great. You'll be a great fit. Popped me into King Street. And it was awesome. It was really good for my tattooing, really good just for everything, really.
Yeah. And I think, like, you know, like, props to Scott and you know, like, talking so highly from him. I think that's part of something that was changing as well in the industry. Like, you know, if you want to leave somewhere and, you know, you do it on the right way, and, you know, you give people notice and all the rest of it, like, you know, people know that, like, you know, even me with the shop, I know the only person that's going to be there forever is me. It's, you know, people are going to come and go, and what you hope for is that people do go on to somewhere better to better themselves and also better tattooing. And that's a win-win for everyone.
I think if you've got one of those shops where it's just a constant turnover of people, like something's wrong. Obviously people don't stay put forever. That's just the nature of tattooing. But like you're kind of drawn to those places that have got these people who have just kind of been there for a long time. You think like, what's going on here? That's, you know, they've got the goods and I want to be a part of that.
Yeah. I think it's like, you know, like I know myself, I've always like, oh, imagine I could work there one day, and then maybe one day you do, and then, okay, the next rung up the ladder, or I can go here and learn something. And it's a great information exchange for everyone, and everyone's a winner. So, but at that time at Newtown, like Newtown was like rocking, you know, it was like, was that around the time when the cross sort of closed down?
Yeah. So, it was pretty much that exact time. So I'd started there, and I like the shops I'd worked in, like Wentworthville Tattoo Nation. That was a busy street shop, but it was in a different way. Like we were open till 3 in the morning. We were working like from 11 a.m. till 11 p.m. most nights, and then 3 in the morning.
Shifts.
Yeah, 3 in the morning, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and it was just like, you know, just back to back. There was I think at one time there was like 14 people tattooing, just doing walk-ins pretty much, and it was just pumping. And then I went off with Scott, and because we'd opened a new shop, it was a lot quieter, and it allowed me time to kind of develop my style. Or, you know, start to develop a style or draw stuff that wasn't just walk-ins. And then going to Newtown, it was kind of this happy medium of I could book in all my own clients and have, you know, 3 or 4 days where I had stuff booked, and then fill the rest of my week with walk-ins. Cool. And that was just like kind of perfect for me at that time, because, you know, like everyone continues to learn and grow, obviously, and I'm getting to do a kind of different clientele than like out west or up north. So, and Newtown's just awesome. Like any tattooer in Sydney who's got a chance to work on King Street, I guarantee they fucking loved it, because it's the most fun time ever. Like
I imagine, like as a progression of your career, like doing all those walk-ins out at Tattoo Nation would have given you the time to like hone in on your technical ability to a certain extent, and then going with Scott, like step up your art side of things, and then, you know, like you were saying, Newtown's like the perfect mix. Yeah,
definitely. And like, you know, I felt like I'd chosen a really good place to be at LDF. Like all the people working there was quite a good range of people doing different styles, and so I could kind of peek in at everyone and see, you know, all the different stuff, and then, you know, so we had like Corey Orman, he was doing like a fair amount of Japanese, but also Corey's one of the best all-rounder tattooers you'll ever meet. Like he is a freak and he can do anything. And, you know, just watching Corey tattoo is amazing. Watching Angus tattoo, like Angus's realism, just his ability to just freehand a portrait onto someone's back. It's like, I've never seen someone do that. I'm like, why would you fucking do that? Like, that's
but Angus has had an interesting thing. Wasn't he one of Les's art students?
He was, that's where he met Les, at the art school. So, amazing. You know, and same with Nick. Nick Matthews, who works at Lighthouse now. Same thing with Nick. Like, he was one of Les's students, and Nick is one of those people, like, someone comes in, they go, hey, I want a black and grey wolf sleeve. Instead of picking 10 pictures of wolves off Pinterest,
the first
he
page
will draw
of Google.
them. He will draw them from his brain, and there'll just be some wacky, wild shit going on. Like, he's amazing. So being around all those guys was really just like kind of just a real like kick up the ass to kind of put more into it, really, not just float along doing walk-ins.
You know, exactly. So at that time as well, were you doing conventions? Were you like, because I know you've had your back done by Matt Cunnington. Was that around that same era as well?
So I started my back maybe about a couple of years after I started at LDF. I'd been guest spotting. So before I went to LDF, I did my very first ever guest spot with Mimsy. A trailer trash. That's when she was at Archerfield out at the airport. Mimsy's always, I call her my tattoo fairy godmother. She's one of
Mimsy's the best.
She's the best.
Pony, like legends.
she's one of my favorite people, and like I feel really, really lucky to have made like a really close friendship with her over the years. She did. She actually tattooed me before I was tattooing. I got some big tattoos on the back of my thighs from her, and then cool. Actually I have a sleeve from her as well.
Wow.
But she's so I did my first.
Is that Gold Coast era?
No, I was living in Sydney,
okay,
and
cool.
I went up and got tattooed by her when I was in Sydney. Yeah. But so I was guesting there pretty regularly. And where else did I go? That was kind of pretty much it in the beginning as far as guest spots for me went. I would just kind of go up there every couple of months, and it was more just because I'd kind of viewed Mimsy as kind of the direction I wanted to go with my tattooing, like really traditional. It wasn't until kind of later that I refined it a little bit and went, I don't know, still traditional, but I guess a bit more neo-traditional almost. So Mimsy was kind of like my biggest influence at the time. So I tried to spend a lot of time there. And obviously like Mimsy worked with Matt for a long time at Wildcard. So the stories she had have about Matt were just wild, and she could not say like a bad word about him. All she could say was how amazing he was. He was a god amongst men. His tattoos are incredible. And I was like, well, who the fuck is this guy? Like I have to go and get tattooed by him. And so I've done like a bunch of guest spots at Westside since then, and I've become really close to all those guys. But my tattoo from Matt, my back, is by far my favorite tattoo.
Yeah, they're both two people I'd love to hopefully do something like this with. Over the lockdown. Both phenomenal people. So how long was your back piece? Like, because at that time, like before all of this licensing law system came in and everything like that, like, Westside had one of the heaviest like rotations of guest artists.
They really did. And the licensing thing really fucked them. They still quite lucky. They get, a lot of guests. People want to go and work with Matt. So they still get quite a few guests, but I think the licensing thing, really, because they were getting a lot of internationals as well. But so I did my back over a year, over like the period of a year. I just flew up from Sydney once a month, and I would fly up in the morning at 6 a.m. And I'd get there, get in a cab, go to Matt's. He would say, we're going to start at 9. And then I'd get there, and instead of starting at 9, we'd go out and we'd get breakfast, and we'd fuck around for 3 hours while Matt set up. And then we generally start about 12 or 1. And I'd be like, why the fuck have I gotten up at 6 to come here? The day I got there to get it outlined, I was shitting myself, because obviously your back's going to be horrible. And I get there, and I walk in, and he says, have you got anywhere to be today? Are you in a rush? Are you flying home? And I was like, no, I'm staying up here for the night. And he's like, oh, cool, because I hate this drawing. And then he just ripped it up and he threw it out. And then we sat there.
He could have given it to you.
So it was 11 a.m. and he's ripped up the drawing, and then we sit there and he redraws it and he goes, what about this? And if you've ever seen Matt draw, he draws everything like this big, all of his back pieces, his sleeves, he draws it all in his sketchbook, and it's all tiny, like palm size. And then he just blows it up massive. And he's just watching it, drawing my entire back tattoo, tiny little drawing. He's like, okay, what about this? And I'm like, perfect, sweet. At this point, I'm like, I don't care, whatever you want to do. And I think it was 6 p.m. before we actually started. He put the outline on twice, ended up wiping it off, ended up freehanding it pretty much on. And then, we didn't finish outlining till midnight. So I got there at 11, we finished up at midnight, and then I just, every session after that was just much more smooth. But
would you eventually fly in and out the same day?
So I would normally, after that, I would fly up, get tattooed all day, fly home at night.
I did that with my back.
75 hours or something.
Yeah, it's brutal. I got my back done by Trevor McStay, and I did a similar thing. Flew down for the outline, stayed overnight, ruined the hotel sheets, got charged for them, and then just went, fuck, this is so expensive. Like a day off, the flights, down and back, and then I used to fly in and fly out at the same time. I remember flying home one night, and like one of the air stewards walked past and went, did you just get tattooed? And I'm like, oh, yeah. He goes, yeah, I can smell the panther. Yeah, funny stuff.
One of the last times I was getting tattooed by Matt, because obviously, you know, most people take painkillers when they're getting tattooed, and I was taking quite a lot of painkillers to get my back tattooed.
I've been there, sister.
And so I was running late for my flight home, and I was running through the airport, and I just finished getting tattooed, and I had like trackies on and no shoes and blood all over me and glad wrap sticking out of places, and I'm running through the airport, and I get to airport security, and obviously I'd taken like, you know, 5 or 6 oxys that day, and I just passed out in airport security. I just hit the deck, and all I remember is like waking up with some like big buff lady dragging me off to the side and putting me on a chair. So I'm like fairly lucky pretty lucky I didn't get cavity searched, I think.
Yeah, you may have, you just can't remember.
Could have, lucky me.
Yeah, I remember I used to set my alarm at the airport because I'd get dosed up on tramadol, and I'd be there and I'd be like, and I'd have to set my alarm so I'd wake up every 5 minutes to make sure I got the flight. So, but it's what you got to do sometimes, you know. That's life.
Definitely, yeah.
Yeah.
And that was, I think, the first time I used numbing cream as well when I was getting my back tattooed. So I'm a big advocate for numbing cream now. Anyone who wants to use it, go for it. I don't care. Whatever you've got to do to sit still.
Oh, I hear, and you know what? It's actually really nice to hear someone say that. Like, for me, I do a lot of big body work and stuff, and for me, it's like whatever you've got to do to get the job done. You know, I'm not a super macho dude. Like, if you've got to do it to get through it, let's do it. Let's work together, because the ultimate outcome is we get to do bigger, greater pieces, and the customer gets through it, you know, a lot more manageable. And it actually, I think it actually gives them encouragement to come back for more.
Yeah,
you know,
and like things like backs, everyone knows that, like, you know, you start 10 backs, you might finish 1.
Yeah,
like,
I think the odds are greater than that.
Like I can count on one hand the amount of back pieces I've finished, because I know, firstly, I don't do a lot. You know, I'm not doing large Japanese work or anything like that, so I don't do a lot. But I would love to finish them. So if things like numbing cream, painkillers can get people through that, then great, because there's a lot of, you know, half finished sleeves and backs out there that really,
totally.
You know, people just don't want to put themselves through that, and that's fair, because it's fucking horrible. I've been tattooed enough. I know it sucks. I've had a sleeve lasered and covered up. I've had my back lasered and covered up. I've been through enough pain. Numbing cream all the way. Yeah,
you got enough form on the board. You know, it's not a battle of who's the toughest or strongest or any of that stuff. So okay, so who else worked with you at LDF at that time as well? Was Les still there pretty regularly?
So Les had he was teaching at the art school, painting at the art school, and he would tattoo kind of sporadically. He was one of those kind of like bosses that you're like, he just pops in and out. You never know when he's going to be there. We had shop managers kind of running the joint. So when I very first started, there was Gus Honey, Corey Orman, Angus was working over at Marrickville, Ash Cairns, she's just gone on maternity leave and had a baby.
Congrats.
Who else was there at the time? Nick Matthews at Lighthouse. He was apprenticing. Him and Ash were kind of apprenticing at the same time and splitting their time between the shops. The 2 shops. And
were the Lonsdales there then?
No, they weren't. I was there before him. Jimmy Memento was there, and then he kind of left after about a year or 2. And that was kind of the crew. And then Mark came. So after Jimmy left, Mark came. And that was like kind of, I think when Mark and Beth started, that was primo LDF era. Like, we just had so much fun, a lot of us. And also Thomas Townend, who now works up at Iron Mind in Brunswick Heads. So
I imagine, so after LDF, was that the move to Melbourne?
Yeah, so I was at LDF for about 5 years, and I'd kind of gotten to a point where I didn't, like, I wanted to make, like, another move. I wanted to make another step, but I was a bit hesitant about leaving, working in a street shop. I think I was definitely ready to do private studio work, but I think that there's a big hustle culture in Sydney. Like, everyone in Sydney works all the time, as many days as you can, booked out, make as much money as you can. Like, it's all about being busy.
It's expensive city.
Yeah. And that's totally it. And so for me, I was just like, well, I can't afford to only work, 3 days a week doing 2 tattoos a day. Like, that's not me. Yeah. And also, like, I am someone who loves to work. Like, even now in Melbourne, I still like to work as much as I can, if the work's there. And I'd kind of gotten to a point where I was like, well, there wasn't a lot in the way of street shops in Sydney that I wanted to go to after LDF. Yep. It was all private studio, and there wasn't really anywhere where I was like, felt like I was going to be, it was the right fit for me at the time. So what I decided to do was just take kind of like a leave of absence.
Another big leap of faith.
Well, I just was like, you know what? I'm just going to travel around in my car with my dog and do guest spots for as long as I want to. And so my first destination was West Side. And so I took Murph's actually in here. Murph, come here. Come here. Come here. I took Murph and we went.
We love cameos on this. Amazing.
So hi everyone. This is Murph.
All right, Murph. Awesome.
She's 12. She doesn't give a shit.
Yeah.
So I took Murph and we lived in my car. We kind of traveled around, but we went to West Side and we tattooed there for a month. And Matt had said to me, like, if you want a job, it's yours. Like, come, or whatever you want to do. After you've done your little trip around and you want somewhere to settle in, come here. So I was like, all right, well, that's a pretty sweet offer that I, probably
pretty good
can't
backup
refuse.
plan.
Yeah, but I'd already locked in a guest spot the next month in Melbourne with Claire at Hot Copper. And Claire tattooed me years previous at Corpus before she had her shop. So, I met Claire and we knew each other, and we, she'd always been like, when are you going to move to Melbourne? When are you going to move to Melbourne?
Yeah, Claire's a Sydney girl as well. Yeah.
Well, she's actually from Victoria, but she did her tattooing days up in the Central Coast.
Okay, yep.
So I was like, okay, well, this offer from Matt is really great. And I definitely was keen on taking him up. But then I went to Melbourne and I worked for Claire for a month, which is amazing. Claire is one of my tattoo heroes. She's probably one of my favorite tattooers. She's amazing. And she is 100%. The greatest boss of all time. But I actually met my boyfriend while I was down here. So then I was like, oh, well, fuck. I've got to move to Melbourne now. So that's what got me.
I'm gonna stop for a minute before we go into the love story and the current state of play of Melbourne. Let's just wind it back, because I know you were heavily involved in the Not Just the Girl Flash Days here in Sydney. Can you tell us a little bit about that stuff?
Yeah, so that kind of came up when there was, I can't remember what the first year was, 2017 maybe. So it was Eddie Lou from FLT and I and Sash from the Darling Parlour kind of, it was conversation with a bunch of women actually at a tattoo expo about just how male-focused tattoo expos are, and we just wanted something that was just for us. And there was all these huge group flash days. It was kind of like peak flash day time. Everyone was having them. Like Hunter and Fox were having huge ones. West Side were having huge ones. It was all 20 tattooers, and they were pretty much all men.
And mini
if there was a couple
conventions.
Women, if there was women, it's because they worked at the shop. They weren't seeking out international guest artists or anything. It was just pretty much all dudes. And we were like, well, there's so fucking many female tattooers in Australia, and so many amazing ones, and people 100%. People just weren't taking us up on it. And so we were like, well, let's just make our own flash day. And it was definitely one of the best things we've ever done. We donated, we got everyone to donate their time. We donated all of the money.
Huge amounts of money too. Yeah.
So the first year we had 24 girls tattooing in Sydney at the Darling Parlour. And then we had, I think it was 10 tattooing in Brisbane. And then the second year we had same thing, 24, and then I think more in Brisbane, and then about 8 or 9 in Melbourne. And that year we raised $100,000 for women's charities.
Mate, that's no mean feat. That's huge.
No. And that's probably one of the things I'm the most proud of that I've done in tattooing, because it took a lot of organisation, and just also a lot of copying bullshit from people as well, because the second that you do something,
Yep.
the critics come out of anywhere. The second you're
Yep.
trying to do something nice, it's not good enough, or you know, why are we not raising money for men's charities? There was a lot of that, and I was just like, that was quite exhausting, and it definitely has deterred me from wanting to do more. Like, not deterred me, I definitely want to do more, but it makes me question how much stress can I really take on?
Yeah, I think like might be different. Like from a male point of view, like even me just doing these last few things, I've got some flack because I'm not pronounced things properly. I've not done this or I've not done that.
Yeah.
For me, anyone that is putting in their time and standing in the ring and doing something good for something for people to benefit, I just block it out, because
totally.
What have you actually done? You've done fuck all. You're just a keyboard warrior. So you just let them go, and please don't let it deter you or your friends for the future, Mel, because it's got a good momentum.
Eddie and I have definitely had conversations about it since then, and talked about like what direction can we take it, because the thing was as well is that we kind of felt like the amount of women we did have tattooing wasn't enough. We were like, well, we want everyone to do it. We want everyone to be a part of it. So then we thought, well, we could go. I don't know if you've seen Ashley Love's Flash Day thing that she does worldwide called Still Not Asking for It.
No.
It's basically
I have heard of it. Yes, yes.
But it's instead of kind of organizing it herself and having one location, she signs up shops all over the world to represent, and then they'll have their own flash tattoo, like Flash Day that day, raise all their money and donate it to a charity. You know, it's all for women's domestic violence. So I think that's probably a far easier way, kind of logistics wise, because we did kind of toss up doing a convention, but there's just so much cost involved, and once you start outlaying for stuff, it's money you're taking away from the charity. So we wanted it to just be streamlined, to be easy, to be simple, and for it to just be an event for the women in tattooing, and to really showcase like how much talent there is in Australia.
Yeah, totally. Like the balance is definitely shifting. Like I know at Little Tokyo, we're probably coming close to an equilibrium of male and female artists, and like I see the future. I see that changing more, and there's going to be more females in it.
For sure.
It's a great thing. So, and I really hope you girls carry on and do some more powerful stuff and great stuff with it. So, okay, we've got about 17 minutes left, and I know we can chat all night. So let's now talk about your move to Melbourne and landing in Melbourne, and working with Claire and the crew at Hot Copper. Like you mentioned before, the transition from Sydney to Melbourne, like how have you found it all and got in the groove?
So when I first moved down, I moved down, it was like really, really hot the day I moved down, and then I think 2 days later it was freezing.
So Melbourne.
And then it just stayed cold, and I was like, well, what the fuck's happening? Because as someone who grew up on the beach, lived in the Gold Coast, lived in Sydney, you know, I love the beach. I miss it so much. I love 40-degree days. I want to be hot. I want to be sweaty. So Melbourne, it was somewhere like Claire and I used to have arguments, because she'd be like, when are you going to move to Melbourne? I would go, never. Until I met Nate, and then I was like, well, all right, fine. You know, I was already kind of in limbo about where I was going to live. Nate was still studying at uni when we met, so it just kind of, and he had a good job down here. It made more sense for me to move. And so I moved down, and like I haven't looked back. Like my first 6 months in my first winter was pretty rough. I was like, oh, I don't know about this, but the shop is amazing. I don't really ever want to work anywhere else. It's just the best. Claire is the greatest boss of all time. Like when we came back from lockdown, we had to only work 3 days a week each because of the size of the shop and the social distancing. And she was like, how does everyone feel about it? Like, if you don't want to do any work, you don't have to. Like, nobody has to come in. If you're working too hard, you're in trouble. Like, it's just kind of the opposite to any shop experience I had in Sydney, where
whip cracking.
Totally, There's like, it's more about a balance here, I think. And, you know, Melbourne's a lot more affordable. There's also fucking heaps more tattooers here. So I think that even the busiest people here aren't as busy as they could be if they lived in Sydney, you know? Like, I just even when I tattooed in Sydney for almost 10 years, so I have most of my clientele are there. So when I go back, I still have it like a huge waiting list for guest spots.
Yeah.
But I've never been that busy in Melbourne, and I don't think I ever will be, because the standard of busy is totally different.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, it's just it's like I grew up in Melbourne, so and I know that, like, if I was to go back, I would not be nowhere near as busy in Melbourne as I am here in Sydney.
Yeah.
Just talk to us a little bit, like, about the lockdowns, because I know you've managed to, like, get out for a couple of lockdowns, you know, to keep the home fires burning and put bread on the table.
So big lockdown last year. Obviously, we all went into it at the same time, and then Melbourne came out a little bit before New South Wales. Yep. Like Victoria came out for about 3 or 4 weeks in June, and then we went back in July, and then that one ran through till November. So during that period, I was just losing my fucking mind, because I think I was, especially then, was still really in the frame of mind of like work. Work's the most important thing. Got a tattoo to survive. And sitting at home, I've never been someone who likes to sit at home and do nothing. Like my days off, I'm out and about, I do stuff, I'm quite social. Yeah. And so that was just my worst possible nightmare. And so I actually ended up leaving in September, flying to Sydney, doing hotel quarantine, so I could tattoo.
Yeah, I think you were coming out of quarantine as Mayo was coming up, and
we were
you sort of crossed over in the same hotel.
Yeah, we were in the same hotel. We were sharing tips, and I was talking to him about how to get a microwave and
how to get a balcony even.
So that was super interesting, but like that was kind of the frame of mind I was in. I was just losing it here. There's only so many commission paintings you can do before you're just like, fuck this. Like, so I was really lucky. So then I ended up spending about 2 months waiting it out in Sydney, tattooing. I tattooed at Lighthouse. Yep. And I tattooed at Sophia's shop, Hand in Hand. She just opened. So, and that was great.
Sophia's just said your quarantine food diary was hilarious.
Everyone is always talking about that whenever I talk about quarantine. They're like, the food diary, because I was kind of journaling the shit that they were feeding us. Yep. It was fucked. But yeah, so then I worked there for like 2 months, and then I came home when the lockdown ended. But then we had another one in February, which I managed to dodge. I was on my way to Tassie that day, and then we had another one, the one that was a couple of weeks back. I just got home. Nate and I had gone to a wedding in Queensland, and we got home, and then the next morning they were announcing the lockdown, and as they were announcing it, I just booked a flight, went to the airport, got on a plane, and went to Sydney. So then I spent a couple of weeks tattooing in Sydney. The trick is that I didn't change my license over from New South Wales when I moved here 2.5 years ago.
Hey, let's keep this between us, right? They're minor technicalities that no one needs to know about.
I'm a New South Wales resident. I'm just trying to get home, guys.
100%. Like, you know, and I think Gladys did say, everyone from New South Wales in Melbourne, come home now. Yeah,
so I did. But this one I didn't manage to escape. My options were go to Queensland. But I just, I've been pretty lucky. Like a lot of the people I know here weren't in the position to just bounce at a moment's notice. I was lucky I have my friends in Sydney that I can go and stay with. It doesn't cost me anything. I've got shops I know will take me, like, Soph and Lighthouse, they've always been really good. They'll just take me at a moment's notice. So I've been lucky in that sense, and I just thought, oh, fuck it, I can't be bothered this time. I'm just going to stick it out.
All right, so we've got about 10 minutes left, Mel, and let's bring home this last 10 minutes of power strong. So while you're taking us to your art room and then on to show us the chopper that Nate's building you, you can answer a few of these comments. Keep coming up about something about a cold fish.
This is Rhys. Just the cold. So every couple of days in hotel quarantine, they'd give you like this fish curry, but it was cold and it stunk, and I had to keep throwing it out.
Torture. All right, let's show us where the magic happens. Show us the art room and anything you've got on the go.
All right.
And maybe your collection, some books and stuff. Here we go. I'm going to walk everyone through this because I don't think we can hear. So
Oh, okay, you can't hear?
Oh, no, here we go. We're back. It saved my pathetic commentary.
Hello. This is my desk. This is where stuff happens.
Hey, is that print from Som?
Yeah, yep. So I've got 2 from Som. So Som did our Not Just a Girl Flash Day, and she is the best. She's one of my favorites. Give her a big hug for me. I've actually been getting into punch needling during lockdown. I find it very therapeutic. So I've made these fuzzy boys. Yeah. So
you've obviously worked out the balance of life.
Yeah, I've put the pens down, and I'm just doing some woolly creations. So Nate and I share the office. So this is his side. Nate's a lawyer, so it's not as exciting.
Nice.
And then just got some stuff up on the walls here. Here's the books.
Yep. Looks like a tattoo shop.
I know, and this is probably the only room in my house that it looks like a tattoo shop. Here's Nate's Harley phone. Yep. Oh. This is my dog shrine. So I've got a couple of my dogs who died. I've got their ashes.
Bless them.
Kat Weir, who I work with, made me this incredible tiny oil painting.
Wow.
Of me and our dog Mozzie, who passed away last year. And it's just, look at the size of it. Like, it's just amazing.
Yeah, miniature.
Yeah.
Wow.
And here's Murph. Get up, darling. But yeah, so this is the office. But we can head out to the shed.
Yep. And like, it's so nice because obviously Nate, you were saying he's a lawyer, but he's also got quite a reputation as a bike builder.
Come on, Murph. Yes, he does. So
yeah. So I've just got one question. Like, do his clients know that his Instagram page is Born to Lose?
Probably not. He keeps that on the down low. To hear that, Nate?
That's probably a good thing. Can you introduce us to Nate?
Here we go. Everyone, this is Nate. This is my beautiful boyfriend. He's just out here looking at the bike he's building me. So here we go. So,
amazing.
What if we get further away? So what is it? A 74? 73 shovel head frame.
Yeah, amazing.
With an Evo motor in it.
Mate, reliability.
Yeah, yeah. Well, that's it. So Nate's a big Evo guy. That's his FXR over there.
Nice.
That's my 89 Sporty.
Yep. Yeah, so you're obviously both quite into the bike culture as well.
Yeah, it's
and it's an amazing community in itself, and it has a big girl community too. It
does. I got my bike license in Sydney, just to kind of dodge all the traffic and the parking and things around.
Yep.
But I didn't really have much of a kind of bike friend group in Sydney. But when I moved to Melbourne and I met Nate, he had a really large one, and a lot of them were girls. Lucia was probably the first one I actually met.
Yeah, what a legend.
And it was just really nice because they were super welcoming, really supportive, and just like really fucking cool.
Yeah. Benny Bones had just show us the moat he dug in the front lawn.
Oh, Benny did an accidental skid on our front lawn, which Nate wasn't too happy about because Nate loves his lawn.
Hey, we might have to go back inside because it keeps breaking up.
All right, yeah, cool. Heading in.
Yeah, but on the way, you can tell us about the paint job you're going to do on the frame and tank and that sort of stuff.
All right, cool. Well, I think we're just going to go black. Well, Nate, every time I ask, he goes, well, you don't have a say. He reckons it's for him, but we all know it's for me.
Well, you're going to be paying the rego and the insurance.
Yeah, I know. Well, Nate's got a Jenny shove as well that's not in the shed at the moment. So he's going to be busy with that. So the Shevo, we're calling it, will be mine.
Nice, I like it.
Yeah.
Well, you know what? I don't know about the Victorian state government, but the New South Wales government is giving some sort of grants to small businesses, and I see that as a perfect promotional vehicle for you.
I think so.
So, all right, let's talk a little bit about your style of tattooing in the last couple of minutes. Like, for me, it's like it's rooted in traditional, but it's super colourful and happy and all that sort of stuff. So how would you describe it yourself?
Pretty much that. Like, people, it's one of those weird questions, right? Like, when people ask, obviously it's different because
Yeah.
it's very obvious what you do. But like, it
Yeah,
is one of those,
I specialize in scales.
just tattooing man butt. I think it's one of those things that
Yeah.
like,
All
anytime
day,
someone
every day.
anytime someone asks you like what your style is, it's kind of like, it feels weird. It's like, am I like, you know, just it's one of those like, I've got to talk about myself things. But I guess it is rooted in traditional.
Yep.
I pretty much do every tattoo with an 8 and a 3. So
Yep.
that
I imagine you're using like a rotary pen and cartridges these days.
I pretty much have been using Mark Sender tattoo machines the entire time I've been
There you
tattooing.
go.
My
Yeah.
very first tattoo machine that I had was a Mickey Sharps, and I used it for lining and shading. I would take the tube and needle out when I'd done the lining and put the tube and my round shader in, and then just do the shading with that. I didn't see a mag until maybe I'd been tattooing for about 3 years.
Yeah, no need for that stuff. Like, you know, yeah.
No.
Like
But
perfect one thing at a time.
I do have a Bishop rotary as well. So I only got that like maybe 6 months ago. So I barely used it because of lockdown.
Yeah.
But I like
They're
that.
actually a great machine.
Yeah.
Yep.
But I pretty much have just been using Mark Sender machines. I've got some Morgans and some Marvs and some other stuff as well. My Morgan machines are great, but can't beat Mark. They're great. Great machines.
Cool. Like we're going to wrap it up. We've got a few more minutes left. So anything you want to give anyone, any shout outs or thanks or anything you want to say?
I'm obviously going to shout out Hot Copper. So
yeah.
Hot Copper
Sorry. Yeah. Give us a walkthrough. Who's working there?
So Hot Copper. So we've just moved. We've been setting up our brand new studio because the original studio had been in Coburg for 6 years, and we've just moved to Preston to
Amazing.
a street level location. So it's still by appointment, but it's much easier to find.
A bit of trivia. I was born in East Preston.
Oh, are you? I'll go visit where you were born.
Yeah, the Panch Hospital. Like they've put a plaque on the actual ward that I was born on.
Rhys was here.
Yeah. Actually, it was Reza. My nickname is Reza because I learned to tattoo in a suburb just up from Preston called Reservoir.
Oh, Reservoir.
And back in the day, it was, you know how people in Sydney go, oh, Westies. Reza was Reza. Yeah.
Well, we live in Campbellfield, so
nice.
We're just north of it,
near Truck City.
Yeah. We live like right at the back of the industrial area. So
yeah, I used to go to illegal drags out there when I was a kid. It was amazing.
They're still happening.
Oh yes.
Yeah. They're still happening.
Melbourne.
Yeah.
Sorry, back to Hot Copper.
Yeah, so in Hot Copper we've got Claire Hampshire who owns the shop.
Yep.
And then there's myself, there's Kat Weir, Amanda Brooks, Yasmin Thistlethwaite, Georgia Swale. We've got Brittany Kilsby is leaving and opening her own shop, and Nicole Drake is moving to New Zealand at the end of the year. So we just got Megan Mary, who's going to come and work with us when the new shop opens. And Megan is like a Melbourne legend, and she is just one of those amazing all-rounder tattooers as well. Like I love a good all-rounder street shop tattooer, like the Lonsdales, you know. Can't beat 100%. Mark can tattoo anything. So she's just like that. I'm pretty excited about that.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's just we've got all female tattooers, which is not on purpose. It's just kind of how it worked out. And it's just the nicest tattoo environment ever. Like, I just love it. Every day is a pleasure. Yeah,
it's so cool. Like, and this is like, you know, another example of the ever evolving state of the tattoo industry. Like, you know, even though it wasn't planned, like there's quite a lot of female shops opening up these days. You know, you've got, you know, like Sophia's done her Hand in Hand here in Sydney. It's not purely female, but it's a great thing, and it's just like girl power's like, you know, on the cusp of taking over, and it's a great thing to see.
Totally. And I think it's as well, it's just about making a space that is comfortable for your clientele is the most important thing. Like without our clients, we're nothing, and we
100%.
need them to be as comfortable and feel safe and welcome. And a lot of the older kind of style of tattoo shop doesn't do that. Like I've had clients, you know, say how how different their experience was at somewhere like Hot Copper. And that's super important to me. Like that my customers feel confident and happy to come, and you know, they don't feel nervous about walking in.
Mate, amazing. It's a credit to all you girls. It's a credit to tattooing, and it benefits tattooing. You know, and tattooing is that wide and open these days. Like, you know, you can cater to a certain section or a wider section, and it's a great thing. It just, you know, it's another indication of like how more than mainstream tattooing is becoming, and you can cater to, you know, who you want to, and it's a great thing. And people now have the choice. If people have the choice to be educated, like everything is at the touch of a button, so they can go out there and, you know, just because they maybe have had a bad situation or experience somewhere else, it doesn't mean they should be turned off tattooing. They've just got to do some research and find a place for them.
For sure. And I always say to like my customers, like if you go into somewhere and you're not comfortable with the person, what they're telling you, how they're talking to you, don't get tattooed there. Just walk out. Like they may be amazing. They may do amazing tattoos. They may have all these Google reviews. They may have, you know, all this like accolade from people in the industry. But if they don't make you feel comfortable, don't give them your skin. You know, don't 100%. Waste your time. You'll never be happy with that tattoo. So I think that's, we just, you know, it's our responsibility to treat our customers with respect.
100%, Mel. Like you said before, without our customers, we're no one. And it's, it is. It's such a special thing to be able to, you know, tattoo someone. And whether it's like a small kanji on the arm or a full back piece, when they look in the mirror, the feeling is exactly the same. And one 100%. Is not better or the other. You've got to treat them with the same amount of respect. And we're you know, we're moving towards that. So it's a great thing.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah. All right, Mel, I'm going to like round it up, but thank you so much. Like,
oh, you're welcome. Thanks for chatting to me.
I've had so much fun. Like we've known each other over the years, but we're not close friends or anything. But I think, you know, us being able to chat tonight just is an indication of like how cool you are, how amazing you are, and how down to earth. So if anyone wants to get tattooed by you, or anyone else at Hot Copper, what's the best way to find all you girls?
To find everyone at Hot Copper, just look up our website, it's just hotcopper.com. And everyone's portfolios, everyone's Instagrams, everything's on there. Most people prefer an email for contact. I think that's just general for pretty much all tattooers. But so just hit us up on the website, check everyone out. Everyone's
cool.
Great.
All right, amazing.
Thanks
so much, Mel.
Rhys.
I love ya. It's been such a really cool chat. And love ya. Chat to you soon. Ciao.
See you, mate. Bye.